Hello viewers, I welcome you to informative lecture series on population and management. In this program, we will discuss population in higher education in India. First, we will discuss the education system in India. The general roadmap of education in India may be traced as beginning with school education followed by college level or vocational education. School education comprises 12 years of schooling. It is generally known as 10+2 system, as the first 10 years of school education provide undifferentiated general education for all students, followed by bifurcation into different academic and vocational streams, mostly at the 10+2 stage. The first 6 years of school education are defined as the primary level, followed by upper primary 6 to 8 and secondary 9 and 10. The +2 stage, also known as the higher secondary stage, provides differentiation into various academic and vocational streams and marks the end of school education. In some states, the +2 stage is located in intermediate or degree colleges, but is not regarded as a part of tertiary education. Education is regulated by Central Ministry of Human Resource Development and managed by the Department of School Education and Literacy and the Department of Higher Education. The governments at the state level have boards of secondary and higher secondary education, and students need to qualify in central examinations conducted by various boards operating in the states and union territories after completion of 10 or 12 years of schooling for certification of the same. The entry point for institutes offering vocational education and training is generally 8 to 10 years of schooling. Qualification in the secondary examinations is a prerequisite for entrance to diploma level colleges such as polytechnics, and entrance to degree level colleges require qualifying in the higher secondary examination. Competitive entrance examinations are used to select students in engineering and medical colleges and also for postgraduate education in the above two disciplines as well as management studies. Tertiary education in general streams of science, arts, commerce or professional streams of engineering, medicine, law, judicial science, etc. is provided by undergraduate colleges affiliated to a university. A degree of graduation or post-graduation in any discipline can be awarded only by a university with the exceptions of the national institutes such as Indian Institutes of Technology, IITs, and Indian Institutes of Management, IIM. Technical education. The current technical workforce development system in India is provided by 3 categories of institutes. The vocational education and training system at the certificate level being offered by the Industrial Training Institutes, ITI, and also at 10+ school level. The technician education system comprising polytechnics offering diplomas in engineering and technology, and the technical education system comprising institutes offering degrees and higher qualification in engineering and technology. Certificate level programs from the first level of technical education in India. Studies on the job functions of the above categories of technical labor indicate that they need to develop a set of capabilities essential for building excellence in their respective areas of work. The capabilities are given as follows: engineer, scientists, technologists. People in this category who are involved in research, design and development of new products, technologies and systems should possess capabilities, skills in the area of understanding of basic and related engineering sciences, engineering design, analysis, synthesis, evaluation and problem solving, research and development, design and development of new products, technologies and systems, optimization techniques, testing and quality control, lifelong learning, communication, management, environmental protection, technician, engineer and technician. This category of people should possess skills in environmental protection, understanding of technologies and related practices, shop floor field planning and management, resource optimization, supervision of production construction processes, testing and quality control, entrepreneurship, erection and installation, repair and maintenance and servicing, material management, environmental protection, communication, labor management, ensuring safety, science of improvement and action research skills, marketing and sales, communication and lifelong learning, skilled worker and craftsperson. This category of technical labor should possess specific job-related skills such as operation and maintenance of machines, plant and equipment for operation and production, construction as per specifications, safe work practices and positive work attitudes, environmental protection, entrepreneurship, productivity, improvement, etc. Higher education in India is undergoing considerable change. With over 600 million people in India under 25 years old, the system is under tremendous pressure to expand. The young population has a huge appetite for education, and as the growth in the size of the middle classes escalates, millions are increasingly able to pay for it. By 2020, India will have the largest tertiary age population in the world and will have the second largest graduate talent pipeline globally, following China and ahead of the USA. Government's plans are in place to transform the sector over the next 5 years. Every aspect of higher education is being reorganized and remodeled: funding, leadership and management, quality assurance, accountability, relationships with industry, international collaboration, and the way research and teaching are conducted. If these reforms succeed, the breadth and the depth of the change will be transformational. But what is actually happening on the ground in the universities and colleges across India? How do they view these national plans, and how are they responding to the enormous social changes happening around them? What do they think the future will look like for their institutions? The transformation of education in India in the next 10 years is being driven by two main factors: economic growth and demographics. Wider global factors are also influencing change, including rapid internationalization of education, global competition for talent and research funding, and the commodification of education. Many more are able and willing to pay for education, but many are left behind. In the next decade, India will experience enormous growth in its middle classes, from 50 million now to 500 million by 2025. By 2020, India will be the world's third largest economy. These factors present three interrelated key challenges for education in India: expansion of the system, equity of educational opportunities, and enhancement of the quality of teaching and research in Indian institutions. These issues are reflected in the three central pillars of the Government of India's 12th five-year plan for education. The Indian government is planning huge expansion at all levels of education. While there is no doubt that this will be the decade of change at transformational scale and pace, India's rise faces daunting challenges. The education system as a whole is beset with issues of quality, access, and equity, and change is happening much faster in some states than the others. The general standard of education in India is not sufficient. There are not enough places in schools, colleges, universities to cope up with the enormous and increasing demand. Traditional approaches to meet this demand will not be sufficient in the time scale needed. With the rise in the middle classes, an increasing number of people need not rely upon higher educational institutions in India. Higher educational institutions in India. A brief overview of the Indian higher education system provides an essential backdrop for the following findings. There are three main types of tertiary institutions in India: universities and university level institutions, colleges, and diploma awarding institutions. These are categorized by funding source: central government, state government, and private. Most but not all state governments have legislation in place to grant university status to private colleges, providing them with their own degree awarding powers and much more autonomy. This is the fastest area of growth in new universities. There are currently 100 such private universities in India, 16% of degree awarding institutions. The central government also has the means to grant university status to private institutions under deemed university category. There are currently 129 deemed universities, 20% of degree awarding institutions. It is unclear whether or not this central role will continue, given the plans to develop more decision-making to states. Over the last 2 decades, central universities and institutes of national importance have been the focus of central government priorities and funding. These include the IITs, IIMs, and IISERs, and several national institutes in specific discipline areas. Most international collaboration is concentrated in these institutes, many of which are research-based. They have high prestige in India and beyond. The private sector has outpaced the state sector in tertiary education and is rapidly expanding. The private sector will continue to be crucial in the growth of higher education in India and already comprises 64% of the total number of institutes and 59% of tertiary enrollment across the country. Currently, private higher education universities are growing at 40% per annum. Undergraduate boom and research gloom. The undergraduate sector in India is huge. Currently, 14.6 million, that is 86% students are enrolled on undergraduate courses compared to 2 million, that is 12% on postgraduate courses. Under the new 5-year plan, 2012 to 17, undergraduate education for the first time has been elevated to a top priority position in the government's push on expansion, inclusion and excellence. While general university and diploma courses account for the majority of students, 2/3 of tertiary enrollment, there has been much faster growth over the last 5 years in professional courses, 1/3 of tertiary enrollment, which include engineering, medical, management, law and other vocational courses. Professional courses form the bulk of study in private institutions and are significantly more expensive than general courses, sometimes up to 10 times more. India is not producing enough PhDs. Very few students continue on the research degrees compared to other countries. Only 1,40,000, that is 1% students, are enrolled as postgraduate researchers. The lack of inquiry-based learning and the early researcher skills is limiting the capacity of Indian institutions to engage in vital research and innovation activity. Challenges facing higher education. These fall into 4 broad categories: the low quality of teaching and learning, the supply-demand gap, uneven growth and access to opportunity, and constraints on research capacity and innovation. First of all, the low quality of teaching and learning. Arguably, the greatest challenge facing higher education in India is the chronic shortage of faculty. Various reports estimate that 30 to 40% of faculty positions are unfilled. Most faculty have had no training in teaching. Other issues in teaching and learning which compound the problem include outdated, rigid curricula and the absence of employer engagement in course content and skill development. Very few opportunities for interdisciplinary learning. Pedagogies and assessment are focused on input and rote learning. Students have very little opportunity to develop a wider range of transversal skills, including critical thinking, analytical reasoning, problem solving, and collaborative working. High student-teacher ratio due to the lack of teaching staff and pressure to enroll more students. Separation of research and teaching, lack of early-stage research experience, an ineffective quality assurance system, and a complete lack of accountability by institutions to the state and central government, student and other stakeholders. This has resulted in graduates with low employability, a common feature of higher education across South Asia, and an insufficient basis for movement to higher education levels of study and research. These problems are endemic across higher education institutions in India, including many of the top-tier institutions, but particularly so in affiliated colleges and state universities. The supply-demand gap. Despite an average growth rate of over 7% in the last decade, India's gross enrollment ratio in higher education is very low. By some estimates, even if India succeeds in its target of 30% GER by 2020, 100 million qualified students will still not have places at university. India needs to drastically increase the number of places at universities and enrollment through distance learning programs. Over the last decade, the diversity of courses offered by the universities and colleges has narrowed, resulting in saturated markets for engineers, technology graduates and MBAs, uneven growth and access to opportunity. Despite efforts to spread the location of higher education institutes more evenly across the country, there is wide variation, particularly between urban and rural areas, also between the states. There are still significant multidimensional inequalities in enrollment rates between rural and urban populations, rich and poor, minority and mainstream communities, men and women, and people with disabilities. Inclusive growth is a priority for reform in Indian education. With the growth in the middle classes, Indian universities must prepare themselves for considerable changes in student profile. Constraints on research capacity and innovation. India does not have enough high-quality researchers. The number of students taking PhDs and entering research posts is very low. 4,500 PhDs are awarded per year in science and engineering, compared to 30,000 in China and 25,000 in the US. There is systemic segregation of teaching and research. Most teaching-focused universities, the vast majority, do not provide students with research experience or the skills which would prepare them for research careers. Despite a growing reputation for frugal innovation, mainly driven from the private sector, the ecosystem for innovation in Indian research institutions is weak. The causes, amongst others, stem from the lack of multidisciplinary working, no development for faculty and students in the areas to stimulate innovation, and few links with industry. These constraints reveal themselves in the failure of Indian institutions to make their mark in the world global rankings. All the above challenges are addressed through the Government of India's 12th Five-Year Plan for Higher Education. To sum up, this was all for the day. We will continue with this topic in the forthcoming lectures. Thanks for watching this program.